I get lowball offers whenever I put a house on the market. For every single house. It's usually by way of an email from an investor, and their offers are super low. They don't even bother to call me or contact me in any other way than by way of an email with an attachment of a lowball offer. When I get a lowball offer, I'm obligated to review it with the seller. I don't know if it's a law or if it's just something that the Realtor Association makes you do, but I know that I am obligated to share the offer with the seller. The usual seller reaction when I get a lowball offer is that they immediately say no for several reasons. Because first of all, it's just hit the market. We've got hardly any time on the market whatsoever. And second of all, they really want to get a much better price for their property. Well, like I said, I get lowball offers with every single house that I list on the market. They come by way of email as an attachment. Sometimes they put summary in the actual email body. Sometimes they just put it as an attachment, and I review it first of all, of course. And when I see that it's a lowball offer, I just respond right away and let the seller know about it. And the seller usually just responds that they don't want to accept it. And when I put my house on the market, I also got a lowball offer myself. When this happened, it was about half the price of the asking price. And I wasn't quite sure where the buyer was coming from. I know that the buyer really wanted to move into the neighborhood, and I guess that they really couldn't afford to move into the neighborhood at the time. So I really wasn't that desperate on selling, so I didn't want to negotiate with them one single bit. And I just refuse the offer. I do have effective ways for responding to a lowball offer. First of all, understanding where the buyer is coming from. Are they coming from a point of really not understanding the market? Or are they coming from a point where they just want to get a really good deal on the property? If they're coming from the point where they don't understand the market, it might be good to negotiate back and forth with them and help them understand why the property is worth so much more than what they're offering. And it would be a starting point to negotiations and getting a price that both parties can agree upon. You're always going to want to stay calm and collective whenever you're doing any sort of negotiation. It's always best to understand what the other party wants and where they're coming from. And then also don't just fly off the handle or become upset about it or anything like that. It's just part of what you do. And part of my job as a real estate agent is to also stay calm and collective and make the best out of the situation. And also another thing is that you have to realize that the seller has the upper hand in this situation because the seller owns the property and the seller can respond in any way that's appropriate. So the seller should always stay calm. There's no reason to get upset about it or feel like it's an insult or anything like that. It's just part of the process. If you do get a lowball offer, you definitely should counter with confidence, knowing that the seller always has the upper hand in getting a lowball offer, and also making the buyer understand the true value of the property, giving them some other comparable market analysis, maybe showing them some of the conditions of the house, some of the features of the house that make it more valuable than what the buyer is offering. A seller should walk away from a lowball offer when the buyer is unwilling to negotiate, especially after you give them the information and show them what the value of the house is and they're unwilling to increase the price. That's a surefire way that it's not going to work out. You should walk away at that point. However, if the buyer does increase the price and shows that they have proof of funds, show that they have a letter that qualifies them to purchase the home, shows that they're very serious about purchasing the home. That's a sure sign of that the buyer is willing to negotiate and truly wants the property, and you should keep on negotiating until you come up with a reasonable value, or until the buyer comes up with a reasonable value. The advice I would give sellers that receive lowball offers is to not refuse it immediately. Do not say, oh, it's a lowball offer, I don't care about this, I'm just gonna refuse it right away. Start the negotiations and keep in the game, because you never know how serious the buyer is about purchasing the property. If you're a buyer that submits a lowball offer, understand the value of the home. Nobody is going to take a lower offer that is not worth the value of the property. Is very rare, unless you're in a situation where it's a family member or some sort of situation like that. But in most cases, sellers will not accept a lowball offer. Thanks for watching. And if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want some more information, please don't hesitate to reach out. My contact information is in the description below.